WFC. Good evening and welcome to All for United WFC, the women's football chat show. I'm delighted tonight to be joined by Natalie and by Tom Fitton. Natalie, how are you doing?
I'm good. Good to be on.
Lovely. And Tom, welcome back to the show. We had you on in pre-season. How are you doing?
Pleasure, mate. Very well. Yeah, not too bad. Getting excited for Christmas now. It's getting close, isn't it?
That's it. Get on that countdown, finishing work and everything, and then we can all relax. I say relax. See what happens. But so tonight then, got a few things lined up. Going to be talking FC United women's season so far. Obviously, one club mentality, very big on promoting both sides and growing the club, which is fantastic. You know, we love hearing about stuff like this. Doesn't happen with every team, sadly, in women's football, but I know from personal experience that it does happen a lot at FC United. Also touch briefly on sort of the Women's FA Cup, the lack of prize money and what it's sort of like lower down. And then we'll finish off at the very end of a mini Q&A. So if anybody wants to chuck in the questions, do it at the end and we'll select some to read out as well. So Nat, I'm going to hand over to you to sort of kick this off then.
So obviously Tom, hi everyone in the comments. We had you on pre-season and we were confident, weren't we, going into the start of the season? How do you think it's gone so far?
It's been a mixed bag. I won't lie to you about that, Nat. Obviously, I mean, if you're to look at the league, before Sunday, we're at a 50% win rate. Sunday was bizarre within itself. We had 13 players unavailable, whether it was injury, illness, so on and so forth. And that's sort of been the story of the season, really. You know, coming up short in games, taking risks second half and them not necessarily paying off. And then just the amount of changes of personnel, even personnel into different positions. We've had to change the system because of players we've lost throughout the season, whether it's been injury, mainly injury, but injury, illness, and obviously the two that we lost to Brighouse. But I think all in all, if I'm super critical, as you both know, and the team that are around me with James and the rest of the coaches, we sort of can't really let anything lie. So the fact that we've got only 4 wins from 9 games in the league doesn't really rest well with us. But I think if we did take our critical hat off, we'd be reasonably happy being mid-table and before the weekend won 50% of the games. But like I say, that isn't the mindset and the culture we want to create. So all in all, pretty good, but could be a lot better.
What do you think it is, Tom, then? What, you said you're super critical. What would you change if you could, or what are you working on mostly then?
Well, so what we've worked on the last 6 weeks is trying to recruit because we've had no squad. But no, we're prepping for players and personnel. We're hopefully getting back after Christmas. We've had to approach earlier periods in the game a bit more rigid and a bit more reserved and not going on the attack from the off. So that was probably the biggest thing that changed when now obviously the wins started coming. Obviously, as I've spoke about in the past, my whole DNA is Man United focused and going attacking. It's probably the biggest learning curve I've had personally coming to this league. We haven't been able to press everyone. We haven't been able to be on the front foot because they've played a different style of football that I've not necessarily been exposed to as much. But yeah, at the moment we're really happy with the structure. The players are getting a really good understanding of it now. The biggest thing we've got is by the time we finish a training session on a Thursday night and everyone's prepped for Sunday. By the time we get to Sunday, we've probably lost about 5 players because one reason or another. I mean, this week just gone, we lost 3 players that we'd named in the starting 11 from Thursday to Sunday. So it's football at the end of the day, and it's definitely the current environment we're at with COVID and stuff like that, and even players coming back from injury. You know, I get a player back at the moment, and you'd want to give them a few weeks and, you know, build up the game time, and they're getting 60 to 90 minutes, and, you know, they're then struggling through the week to get ready for next Sunday. So we're working hard. That's probably the biggest thing. And to be honest, at this moment, if we were looking at the results in hindsight, we could say we probably worked too hard. But if we weren't winning the games, we weren't working hard, then someone would be knocking on my door for us not working hard enough. So, you know, we've got good personnel at the club, players, staff, and again, goes back to that critical mindset. Everyone just wants to be winning, which is hard at the time, like I spoke about with Matt on Sunday. There is a bigger picture for us, but it's very hard to keep focused on that when you're not winning games that you're performing in.
I think on that, you talked about, obviously, you know, sort of teams against you playing different styles. Has that been a learning curve, obviously, for yourself as well? And if you've not come up against it, obviously players adapting to a higher league is one thing, but in terms of like yourself, then I'm assuming you can take sort of learning from that as well, and just sort of, you know, it's like you say, a different brand to maybe what you used to.
100%, Matt. It's by far been my biggest learning curve. I mean, we went Chesterley Street away and Norton and Stockton away, and I've never ever come up against 2 teams that have been so direct. Like, it was like watching a game of table football. Literally, the centre halves would get the ball and it'd be within the centre forwards in 2-3 seconds. But they're good at it. Do you know what I mean? Norton and Stockton, you guys will know as well as anyone else, have had massive results both in the league and the cup this season.
Yeah,
they've got some very, very good players, and obviously they're used to the way they're playing. Chesterley Street, quite unique for me. The top 2 of their best players, a different formation again to Norton and Stockton, and obviously if you've been to their away ground, it's on a hill, so it's adapting to their environment, and we'd be hoping to get 2 wins against them at Broadhurst. But again, we've got to be clever and make sure we adapt to obviously what they're good at.
I just want to touch on something, Tom, and it might be going a bit off topic, but you're talking about you've had to adapt, and this is the hardest because you're used to playing a certain way. Now you're coming in, and it sort of reminds me of Mark Skinner and the way that he's sort of coming in, and our players are having to adapt. Do you think he's, like you said, it's results now, and I feel like there's a lot more attention on women's football, and it's more about the results more so. I mean, we're seeing managers get sacked quicker in WSL, and we're seeing, a lot of teams sort of rushing to get up the pyramid kind of thing. Mm-hmm. How do you feel? It is like you're a young coach. I see that you as like a young coach learning. How does it feel now in this environment?
I like it because I'm competitive, and it motivates me. Match day for me is my best day of the week. I live and breathe for it. I think the difficulty for me at this moment in time, because obviously I'm new to the club, the club are taking it in a direction that we want to move it in. A lot of my pressure, if I'm honest, comes from the players and the people that are in and around us, because they don't want to be stepping off the pitch after not picking up 3 points, which we love. I want them characters in my changing room. But for me personally, obviously, I'm not Mark Skinner managing Man United. But for me, my biggest pressure at the moment is, without a doubt, from the staff and the players, because they're in the same boat as me. They're passionate, they give up the time, they're determined, they're winners. And, it's hard because you're living in a moment where, I mean, if I take the last 3 games, for example, Feds, Brighouse, and obviously Barnsley on Sunday, very different. Obviously, one the division above, one leading our league, and one in a relegation battle. And for me, if I was to summarise all 3 games, and again, it's quite generic when you're thinking about 90 minutes. I honestly believe our team's dominated in and out of possession. Yes, we haven't taken every chance we've got, and we've had a few mistakes that have led to goals. There's been the odd dodgy goal conceded if you've watched any back, and we should have had 2 penalties in there and shouldn't have conceded any, which we haven't. So it's hard because at this moment in time, the team that is available to us and the team that is with us every week or in and out each week are doing everything we say to the best of their ability, and we're just not getting any rewards. Like I say, I can't comment for Mark or any of the WSL managers. But I mean, we've seen it in the men's game with Van Gaal. Like, Van Gaal's been brought up in a culture and a way that he works and he believes in, and it's not necessarily always going to work. The biggest thing I would say from my perspective as a coach is you have to work with the tools you've got. So we've had an issue, obviously, at FC. Everyone's aware of it, that we've lacked natural defenders, natural positional defenders. So we've had to adapt with that as we've gone along. And at the moment, we're starting games with 5 at the back, and then you're thinking, well, we've got 5 defenders and none of them are actually defenders. So we've had to adapt to be secure so that we can go and play to our strengths. And the performances in the last 3 games have been so significant because we've had to look at the squad on who's available, what they're best at, and then build a system off that. So there is counterbalances. Like I've never personally played 3 or 5 at the back. I've always played 4 at the back. So biggest thing again, it's adapting to what you've got, and the thing I would want to bullet point and leave it on is playing to the strengths of your best players, all the players that are available to you at the moment in time.
Do you know what? I'm glad you've said that, because that's something I said the other week when we were talking about Mark and Man United. There was a lot of, not falling out, but a lot of opinions flying around after a bit of a rocky run prior to Sunday. And I think the one thing I said was, it's all well and good saying, we were close in this and we're close in that. But he was sort of saying, well, I've not got this signing, I've not got that, which is fair enough. But at the end of the day, like you say, you can only work with what you've got. And it's up to Mark, in his case, to get the best out of what he has. And I know sort of Natalie's sort of nodding along there. And I know you've said similar as well, haven't you, that you can't really afford to wait for sort of transfer windows or people to come back from fitness. Like you say, you just sort of got to go with the flow. And like you say, just learn from it really and build from there.
Yeah, I mean, you were there on, you were there, what day were we on? Tuesday? I nearly said yesterday. You were there on Sunday, Matt. Like, we finished training genuinely on Thursday night, and we had 16 players in the squad. We were prepared on Thursday night. 13 of them had trained. The 3 that wasn't present had trained on the Tuesday. We were under no illusions. It was the first time we had a full squad, full bench. We got to Sunday morning, and 4 players had dropped out, which left us obviously a squad of 12. So we named Elsie on the bench. Obviously, our goalkeeper coach. She is registered, so you can go and check that if you want. And like I say, within. Well, I hadn't actually watched back for Kirsty's injury, but Kirsty fractured her metatarsal in the first 20 minutes. That's the only outfield sub we had. So, it's even to the extent where you could be working with what you've got, and then you've got gets taken away from you within 48 hours. It's the game, isn't it?
It's crazy though, because I think back and I see all these sort of WSL managers complaining, and then I think, well, actually, if they had any idea of what you've had to deal with, it's just bizarre.
Yeah.
Like it literally, I've never known so many like players to be out, and like you said, sort of considering.
I've never had so many players registered in one team.
Yeah, that are now.
That should emphasise it to you.
Well, I was going to say, you've gone from like, what, 25 maybe, more?
Yeah, 25, 26, depending on how we look at Elsie as a player or staff or playing staff. But 26, and we had 13 unavailable, few because of non-injury issues, obviously at the weekend, but now we've got Kirsty added to that. Kaylee did her ankle ligaments last Thursday. So there's another two that are on minimum 4 to 8 weeks easily before they're even on the grass again.
Yeah.
So let's hope the FA don't put a fixture in by 12 o'clock tonight, because I definitely don't have 11.
Nat, where's your boots?
No, I'm no good at playing. I'm no good at playing. But I'd be like that. I'd be like Tom. Some saying he's get the most. How can you say, pressure from your players? But I think even with 11, I'm sure they're still like, no, but we should be winning. I'd be like that. I wouldn't give you. I would be angry to lose, but I wouldn't be able to give you any kind of quality, Tom. But I'm not saying that your players can't. But I just think, it's good. Does that drive you on? Like the fact that they're coming off and demanding more and demanding,
100%. 100%. I want players that are going to go and represent that shirt and that badge to the standard and effort that we expect of them. One of my biggest things, a few of them call me up on it now, like, I don't mind people making mistakes, because I believe that if you make a mistake, you're trying something new or you're taking a risk. And to go and win games of football at times, you've got to take risks. And in any walk of life, nobody gets out of bed in the morning or drives to work wanting to make a mistake. The biggest thing for me is how they react to it. And one of the biggest learning curves that this team have been through, and they demonstrate it week in, week out at the moment, is how they react to a mistake. We used to have people sulking, heads down. It was the end of the game for them because they'd made a mistake. Now we're reacting and we're probably scoring or creating chances within 60 to 90 seconds. So it's little things like that have come on so much. And in my head, and obviously us as staff speak about it all the time, that is the biggest thing that's going to drive us on in this second half of the season. Like, we look at our squad on a piece of paper and we're like, if these were fit, we would have the biggest headache in the world just for who's in the 16 on the Sunday. Never mind who's starting in the 11. I mean, some of the players that haven't been injured have been quite lucky, because we haven't even had the cards to deal. Do you know what I mean? We've been playing poker with 2 cards out of 5. If we're playing Texas Hold'em anyway now.
Yeah. You've pretty much covered, obviously, the injury side then. But obviously, just discussing the league, obviously, you mentioned, sort of you are on, I think, is it 2 more losses than wins now?
No,
I think,
1 in the league.
Is it 1? I think
don't stick any more on them.
Oh, sorry. But I think on that, though, and looking at that league, I know it's something we spoke to back in October with James, sort of the competitiveness of it, like how, anyone on the game or on the day can sort of take points off anyone. But how have you found the league as a whole? Because obviously last year they were tier 5, this year's tier 4. But in terms of for yourself, then obviously you talked about playing style, but how's it been in terms of sort of everything else?
I've massively enjoyed it. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for. Like you say, I've come up against some football styles that I have never experienced in the past, and I've definitely come up against a few weird and wacky things this year that I probably won't be taking on board, but it was good to experience. But without a shadow of a doubt, any team in this league can beat anyone else at any given moment. I mean, actual results themselves, it does look like 2, potentially 3 leagues at the moment now. We've played quite a lot of games, but for me, there's no easy game. Every game's a hard game, and I think if anyone in the league, whether it's Feds, Newcastle, Leeds, have any other mindset than that, they ain't getting out of this league. You cannot rest at any point, and that's the beauty of it, innit? That's what you want. I speak to the fans at FC, and I mean, I'll use Jimmy, the groundsman, as a key example. He said to me on Sunday, and obviously other fans have said it in the past, said they were bored of coming watching the women in the past because they were winning 10, 11, 12 nil. Like, they didn't even have to get out of second gear. So I think that's how I can best summarise the league. If you switch off, you're going to get hurt.
Punished.
If you underestimate anyone, you're going to drop points. But it's good, isn't it? Like, Matt, that was one of the best football games I've been involved in on Sunday. Like, you know, when I got home and I took my emotions out of my head, it took me a good few hours, probably about 3 in the morning. I was summarising at this point, but I thought, you know what? That was a good competitive game of football.
Do you know what, though? To be fair, I did say similar, and obviously, like you say, emotions aside, because I said, that wasn't like a bad game. And I think you said something like, oh, yeah, but we still lost, or whatever it was, which obviously I get because you're in a results business. But I think just the fact that, for me, you were 3-1 down, you brought it back to 3-3 and dominated that second half. I mean, yes, you ended up losing, like you said, but I think that second half performance alone, for me anyway, was, pleasing to see. It showed that there is that fight back. And like you touched on earlier, mentality in the past may have dropped, or in previous seasons, or heads may have gone. But the fact that players now know that 3-1 down, there's still 45 minutes and that's easily corrected. And you did that, up until obviously that 4th goal. It just shows that actually you sort of know in your mind that, yes, we lost the game, but mentally and the fighting desire and the attitude of the players is spot on, because, you've got yourselves back into it. And like you said, could have easily gone on to win that game. Never mind nicking a 4-4. There was chances there, and maybe 1 or 2 decisions that you didn't get that could have, gone that way. But it's like you say, it's just interesting listening to you, obviously, like you say, reflecting on it now, sort of how you view that, and I suppose, previous games before that as well.
Yeah, I've calmed down a little bit since after Sunday. But it still hurts. But like you say, we've got to take the positives from it, because if we beat ourselves up, like you say, the first 2 goals come from mistakes. Now, we can practice them things a million times in training, and it's only happened because of the scenario they faced on Sunday. And you can try and replicate it, but what are the chances of it ever happening again? Yeah. They might be high, but do you know what I mean? We can only sort of manufacture to a certain extent certain things. The rest of the things are what happens in gameplay, aren't they? And when we look at Sunday and the individual mistakes that led to the 2 goals, the players are playing out of position because of the personnel that we'd lost that morning. I can't fault them players. They've done a job for the team. They didn't mean to make a mistake, and they reacted to it and cracked on for another 90 minutes.
Yeah, spot on.
Or however long was left.
I like that though, Tom. I like that you're sort of saying you're angry, you're upset in the moment, but you do now like the emotion's gone. You see the positives, but you're still hurting from the defeat. You know what I mean? It's still good to have those raw emotions. But I just want to, what you were talking about the league, and I know we were talking about the league, and I've had a Wolves fan on talking about how they want more than 1 promotion spot, because obviously I think they're looking for that. And we've had Andy Fisher from Stourbridge on with John, and they've talked about, the league and how it's getting more competitive. But like, I've heard another side of people saying it's good in a way that there's only 1 promotion spot, because it makes the league tighter, makes it more competitive. What do you think of that? Do you think it's a good thing, or there should be more spots to go up?
I without a doubt, there should be more spots to go up. And I think for the infrastructure and the quality of the women's game these days, it needs to be. I understand, especially with the sponsorship from Barclays and the increased TV rights and stuff for the WSL and even the Championship. But how do we know these clubs like Wolves, you know, your Middlesbrough, Sunderland have gone up this year and are flying in the in the Championship? How do we know these clubs aren't going to strive in that environment? Like, we've spoke about playing styles there, and it's no disrespect to them clubs. They're doing what they're best at. But if we lost 1-0 to Brighouse the other week. Like, they're a tier above us. They've got slightly more resources at this moment in time because they've been established at these levels for longer. We competed with Burnley in pre-season, changing things about and lost 2-0. Like, if we're playing against playing styles we're used to or prepared for, we could have got results in them leagues, but we'll never know because we've got to wait. The biggest frustration for me, and I'm pretty sure, Matt, you spoke with James about it when he was on. It's the balance of, in our league, 1 up, 3 down. Doesn't make any sense.
No, we did have a bit of a rant on that, shall we say?
Yeah, and what would probably come back is the regional stuff on, well, you're getting a team from the Midlands, team from the North going into that league, but aren't we supposed to be building the game? Do you know what I mean? If there's teams in tier 5 like Stourbridge, that if they're ready, or whichever teams, whatever examples, get them up there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we're going to touch upon it later, Matt. But in January at the moment, we've got Newcastle, and then the game in the last weekend of January. And I understand there's cup fixtures in there, but there could be another 2-3 teams in the league. We have 3 scheduled competitive games a month. And some of them get played in the midweek, so then you've got 2-3 weekends. We want to grow the game. We want people to be competing. I don't want people to try and contradict and say, look, Tom, you've just been telling us you've got no players. We ain't got players because we've got injuries. If we were to add more fixtures, we'd bring in more players. Yeah, do you know what I mean? That can't be used against us because there's not been a situation where we haven't or would never not fill a fixture. But for me, like I say, I understand Super League's very niche because everything needs to be full time. Respect that, love it. The best growth I have seen in the women's game in the 11 years I've been here. It's filtering into the Championship. We're seeing clubs now that are full time. And you can probably see that with Chef and stuff down near the bottom, obviously not in full time. Obviously, each club will be slightly different anyway, but just going off full time, part time. And then you've probably got clubs in tier 3, and I'll use the northern ones as an example because I know them slightly better, but that are building towards, potentially being professional and full time. And some of these clubs might have to wait, to demonstrate to the boards or the sponsors or whoever's in charge of whatever club. Well, I tell you what, when you go up, you can go full time. But if they go full time earlier, then that could get them there. Or if they're saying, right, this season we've got this and this club that could potentially go up, that are going to challenge for it, and send them up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they've done it for years, and obviously when in the RTCs and the Centre of Excellence is. And I understand we want the women's game to be like the men's, but for the time being, whilst we're still getting there, we can still be the women's game in the unique bits they do. And in RTCs, you've always had to reapply for your licence, and it's gone off facilities, staffing, structure. Are you attached to a first team? Where do these players go? And if at the end of the season you've got Wolves in second, we'll say Fylde in third, and whoever top, all them 3 teams could be ready to go in the Championship, but they've got to wait. It's like, how long did we wait for Blackburn to finally get in the Championship?
Yeah.
And they've destroyed the Northern Tier 3 for the last 3 or 4 years, winning every single trophy they played in.
Yeah.
I think we had to wait.
Yeah, you look at it now, though, if you look at sort of Wolves, Ipswich, Southampton, I mean, obviously, some are Tier 3 and some are Tier 4 there, but it's like you say, I think Southampton at the minute, well, I think they've got games in hand, but they're flying, they've battered everyone, they're winning like, sort of you were saying, like FC was last year, they're winning like 6, 7, 8, 9-0 every week.
Well, it's like Southampton I don't know finances and stuff, but the people that are involved there, so Lauren Phillips, who obviously is on the coaching staff, these are very, very good established people within the women's game.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we did have sort of a blank canvas and the leagues can move stuff about, just, you know, use the logic that's in there.
Yeah.
Who's
Marianne Space is the Southampton manager, if that's what you was going to ask.
Yeah. It's like
she's been involved with England for years. She's been there, done it all, coached at high level. Just like I say, it's bizarre.
It's like, are we wasting time? Do you know what I mean? Like, surely there is a bit of a fast forward button somewhere.
Yeah, I just heard like I said, I've always been open the leagues up, let as many teams, you know, like 2 or 3 positions. But I just heard the other week a counter argument, sort of grow it by keeping the teams in there. You'll grow it, if you get what I mean, like by making it more competitive by having that. That's not my counter argument. That's just our counter argument.
No, to be honest, I do respect it. What I would say is that, and this is only me. Listen, everyone's got their own opinion, but I've worked in women and girls football for 11 years now, and the first 18 months I spent in it, I would work at Man United's youth team. We didn't have a first team, as everyone in women's football knows. I used to go and watch women's football because I wanted to learn where these players needed to get to. And when I look at first team football in that period of time, the development of it, the speed of it, the competitiveness of it, the quality of it, it's unrecognisable. And the reason for that is that, and this is credit to the FA without a shadow of a doubt, and every club that's fallen in it, but the Centre of Excellences and the RTCs have produced that many quality players that they've just completely taken over within 10, 11 years. Like, there's players I used to work with at FC and in our league that are Tier 4 players, and without a doubt, they could be in Championship squads. They might not start every week, but they'd be in the squad. But there's that much quality now where it didn't used to exist. It might sound slightly harsh, but I'm being as blunt as I can be on, an hour podcast. That is now there. So what I would say in that argument is, I agree with it, because you don't want things to collapse. You don't want clubs to go bump. That's not what we want. But I promise anyone that is listening to this now, the quality of footballer, whether the 16-17 coming out of, an RTC, or they didn't go into a 21s, the 21 structure's in place, which is a completely different conversation, to the players that are 28, 29, 30, 31. It's like Faye Mack. She won't mind me saying I think she's probably a leading goal scorer in Tier 3 at the moment. She destroyed us in the cup. Faye Mack's been around for many moons, but she could probably play higher if it balanced, her work life and what she wanted to achieve in the last bits of her career. Do you know what I mean? These players are everywhere, and we're just picking out people I know in the north. The country's a big world in women's football now. So that would be my argument against that, Nat, but it doesn't mean I'm necessarily right.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because like you say, obviously, you use Faye as an example there. She was somebody that when I started in 2014, she was at Blackburn at the time. And like you said, she's been around and capable. But I think I've watched a lot of sort of tier 3 and 4, and like you say, there's so many different players, and that's just the North that are capable of playing higher up. I was speaking to somebody the other day that's in tier 4, and was saying obviously over the summer they had a trial at Sheffield United, which is 2 leagues above, and they turned it down due to sort of a few different reasons. But it's like it just shows, doesn't it? The talent is there, and there's so many players that have come from sort of WSL academy sides and sort of ended up a little bit lower down. And like you say, there's so many talented players that people don't realise that it's massively important.
I mean, I just want to touch on the WSL academies. I know we're not going, but some of the quality in that is absolutely different levels. And I know that. I mean, I've read Charlotte Healy. She's done a little piece, and she says not everyone will make it in that Man United first team, because obviously we're aiming for Champions League. So not everyone will get that first team contract, but there are players there that are absolutely different class. I mean, Chloe Williams is a player that is now in Blackburn's sort of first team kind of thing, gone out on loan. And I think once we see that, Tom, though, once we see, I know it's only just happened. I know when you were at Sheffield, you couldn't do it as much, you had to get the ones. But if we're seeing now, Tara is able to go out to Sheffield, Chloe is able to go out on a dual contract, things like that, where they can still be playing with the 21s, but going to Blackburn to this, experience. Getting that experience.
Yeah.
That is valuable.
Dual registrations are unbelievable because they're getting the best of both worlds. They're getting the full-time education and obviously dual career that falls in the Women's Super League criteria under Tony. And then they're still arguably or potentially getting experience of first-team football alongside it then. There's nothing better. I mean, we can list them, but like Maz at Blackburn last year, that was the right thing for her at the right time, experienced things, got a few goals and got a taste of the championship. And like I say, there's a number of players that are still out now, and they're getting an experience they wouldn't get just sat in a youth team, but then they still get the experience of being full-time with that youth team. So they're getting the best of both worlds, without a doubt.
Definitely.
I think that's important as well, because if you talk in terms of development, one thing I've always said is the link between development football to, if we're talking WSL first team, it's quite a gap, because you think, men's side, you've got 18s and then 21/23s, whereas in the women's, you can be RTC straight into devs at 16 and literally like 16, 17 to then make that jump is quite difficult, I'd imagine.
I would imagine there's quite a few big teams that are looking at bringing an 18s in.
Yeah.
And I think in quite a few cases, you'd probably look at an 18, 19s, and if them players haven't made it, potentially by 19, then it might need to look at, they go and get experience in a first team somewhere else as their primary focus. And it doesn't mean that if someone drops down to tier 2, for 2 or 3 seasons, they can't go back to that club or another club in the WSL. Do you know what I mean? It's everyone's always thinks about what happens today. And I understand that because we're living in today. Yeah. But there's also, the broader horizon of, well, what does that player look like in 6 months, in 12 months, in 18 months? Do you know, what does that player look like? What do they need? Who's giving that the best option or experience for that person? If you've got a 17-year-old player, any position, don't care who it is, and they are physically built for women's football, they need that challenge already. Yeah, they need that, and like I say, they might take a bigger step up in the technical ability or the technical environment, or they're playing from the crowds. The psychological aspect of it might be challenged more, but that's just one example. But if you've got a 6 foot 17-year-old girl and she's playing against, people that are still developing physically, it's already going to slow their development down. And I'm not saying that's always going to be the right answer, because it might not be what that individual needs. But like I say, when you've got someone like Charlotte who's got access to her players day in, day out, she knows them inside out, she can support them on an individual basis that is best for them, in the upcoming months, weeks, potentially years.
Yeah. Bit of breaking news. Tom just said there. Bit of breaking news about the 18s. But anyway.
Oh no! I'm talking in
anything. No, we're just saying. Anyway, yeah.
No,
so
FC. Yeah. I can't work these chats yet. Yeah. No. It's like you say. I mean, we could use Chelsea. Chelsea's infrastructure, how they're based, how they're set up, how they ran, is very, very, very strong. Now, if a player hasn't broke into Chelsea's first team squad by 19, if we're saying they haven't had any injuries or setbacks, they've gone straight in up to 19. In most cases, you could argue, well, are they going to get in that team? Because they've come through at that club, they've worked with the coaches, they know them all, they know that player. If at 19 they haven't broke in, is it best to go to Southampton for a year or two? And don't matter what league we're saying Southampton are in a year or two, they know the coaches are good, they know they're getting backed by the men's. Is that the best experience for that player, or do they stay in the 21s?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
no, I'd agree.
I'm just one guy sat in his
sat in
whatever room.
Just one girl. Listen, I'm expecting an 18 league to come pretty soon, hopefully.
It comes back to Matt's question. It's missing, innit? If you look at it, you don't need my experience, my knowledge. Like, just look at it. What's missing there? Well, it's a pretty big gap. But what would you do?
It does.
Take it back a bit. But
it makes sense. Well, I know in July, Tom, we had a conversation, and I said to you about Sasha Flint. She obviously left City.
Yeah.
I don't even think she played actually at Notts County, but she was there and then dropped down the leagues. And like you say, she's I think about 5'10". Like you say, well built, scored in 40, 50 goals a season.
She's an absolute machine.
Child. Yeah, and then work your way back up. And I think, somebody you love, Nat, Ebony Salmon, never got a chance with us. Has had to go, well known, obviously, to Sheffield, worked away, Bristol, absolutely smashed it, smashing it in America. And it's like you say, just stepping out of that environment to say, right, what do I want out of my development for the next 2-3 years? There's no reason why, I don't know if it would happen, but there's no reason why we couldn't go back in as a club for Ebony. Like you say, once she's had that experience sort of away from the club. I want to... Tim's asking if you had a haircut.
Is it Tim? Am I reading that right at the
Tim
bottom?
Browning.
Tim's our media guy. He's taking the mic.
Well,
because last time he saw me, I look like I've been dragged through a bush.
Now Dennis is somebody me and Nat know. Now he's giving me stick for mine. Shocking. But yeah, I want to move on then, Tom, to obviously FC, the club in general. Then obviously, we spoke to James and he talked about sort of upping the training to twice a week and training sort of alongside the men's team. Obviously, we were talking before the show about the amount of promo they do for you, the fact that men's staff are visible at women's games, and sort of I know through speaking to some of your players that they go and watch the men, and it's like one big sort of club and sort of club ethos of like one club together. And like I was saying earlier, not every club has it. But do you just want to talk to me a little bit about that, Tom? Obviously, in terms of just the vision and everything going forward, it's absolutely massive, isn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think it touches slightly on sort of where mine and Nat's conversation went. Like, you live in the moment of the Sunday night and it's roaring, it hurts, but the conversations I've had with Renault, who's head of football, and the men's team manager, the plans we've got in place, the support we're seeing from the board, obviously in the short period of time that I've been at the club. Everything they've said, everything we've asked for, everything we've requested has been backed. You know, no request is sort of stupid or unacceptable. Everything gets looked at that we put in front of them. It might not always be a direct yes. It's how do we make it happen, and it's refreshing. Do you know, it's so refreshing to be in an environment where, you know, you can come up with something a bit creative and rather than what are you doing, to go, do you know what, I like that.
Yeah.
And we've changed quite a bit, obviously, like you say. My biggest thing when I interviewed was, and like I say, the staff are in voluntary positions. Even myself, like, I've got an argument at home where, you know, you shouldn't be out all these nights a week. You should be getting paid, but we know what we're building. And the biggest thing when I come in was that it was a must. We went to twice a week. So we put a few proposals together, and it was Renault that you know, put it on the table. He said, can we train side by side on a Tuesday and a Thursday? And we were like, without a doubt, it's not a problem to us. We'd enjoy it. So we did a few trial sessions, and what was good was we learned more than we'd even thought about. We just thought about the football side of things. And like I say, Tim's on here now giving me pelters, but it's brilliant because Tim and everybody that works with the men's side are there. They're on site. Do you know what I mean? We're not duplicating anything. We're not asking more of these people. Yeah. But honestly, it's every aspect. It's the kit man. It's the media team. It's whoever. And we've done it. It's been in place for a good few months now. I don't know, probably 4 months. But like, the players chat to each other. They know who scored at the weekend. They know, you know, the key bits about games, and you bump into them in the main reception, and they're talking about the weekend and who they've got this weekend, and it's brilliant. Do you know what I mean? There's such an energy about it, and especially days where, you know, you've been Thursday night, you've worked all week. Like, you worked the Sunday. The last time you was off was Saturday at best. And you get in there, and it sets you alight again. You get in at 5:30. The players aren't even there for another hour, and you're buzzing. You just know what's coming, the energy and how the people are around you. But we're looking into, you know, doing some out of the box thinking for match days, because our match day experience is one of my biggest off-field challenges at the moment, and things we're working really hard on. We've got a new member of staff at the club called Harriet. She's in charge of sort of commercial and marketing, and I've just said, look, I've been trying to improve match day experience. She's come from a non-footballing background, and she's like, well, why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? So we've got a load of ideas, because obviously it's our own facility. We've got access to whatever we need on a match day. The main bits are open all the time now. So how do we use that to attract fans that are not necessarily, you know, drawn to the club because of football? How else can we get, you know, potential new fans, families, and bring that community into the club even more so than is already going on, obviously, with the men's and the community activation they do.
Yeah. Nat, do you just want to jump in on that?
No, yeah, just definitely. It's great to hear, you know, it's that one club. It's you know, training together. Everyone knows everyone. You feel that more so at FC than you felt at other places, or, well, you don't have to say that, but how do you think it is compared to other teams, or do you see other teams going in that direction now? That is the way forward for women's football, being one club mentality.
You'd love to hope so. But like I say, my experience is very limited. I've spent 10 years at one club. Had a season at Chef, and then I've done half a season at FC. So it's hard because I don't know outside of my own bubbles that much, but I think for any women's club to progress, they need the support of the men's, especially in its earliest infancies. Obviously, I'd be quite confident that, you know, the big WSL teams could probably self-run themselves now, but they wouldn't have got to them points without the men's in a lot of cases. Obviously, we've got a really good couple of examples in the Championship. Obviously, London City Lionesses, Lewes, Durham Structure, Coventry United. You know, we're seeing them of how they've done it slightly different. It's something we're assessing or trying to work and learn from at FC. And, you know, it's again going back to that thinking outside the box. But for us, and the conversations and the meetings I have with Renault and his team weekly, it's very much at the forefront of this club and some of the driving towards. Obviously, you guys brought to me you're going to be crashing our Christmas party, which is great, and we want that. But again, it's another step forward. Do you know what I mean? That Christmas party is for the fans. The men and the women should be there. And I'm not sure, obviously, how often that's gone on in the past, but it's definitely the case moving forward. We've had a few social events, you know, behind closed doors with the men's quizzes and just bringing everyone together. Like you say, it just creates an energy that everyone can thrive off, and it motivates everyone. Like, you won't be able to put your finger on certain nights and certain things, but, you know, things will happen and you see a bit of, you know, an extra energy in a player or the group because, you know,
just froze. I don't
no,
know.
he's back.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's what's good, because for me, like, sometimes with certain clubs, and I won't name them for sort of obvious reasons, but it feels like they either don't care or it's forced. You know, whereas FC, you know, it's genuine. And like you say, people are visible. It's not just, listen, anybody can retweet and like stuff, but it's like you say, people are visible on match day and people are coming in and sort of getting involved. And like you say, you know, you can bounce off each other. You know, you might see something in training that you like from sort of Renault and be like, oh, we'll use that. And vice versa. He might say, actually, do you know what? I love that, what Tom's done. Let's do that. And like you say, things such as social events, you know, things that can enhance match days as well. You know, you know what I'm like, I keep banging on about that bar tier. You're probably sick of hearing it, but things like that, you know, I was there to, I think it was about 6:30 till we literally got chucked out on Sunday even. And it's things like that, you know.
That's what it's about, though, isn't it? It's the experience of it. And especially, that's the beauty of women's football, because, you know, you've got access to the players, you've got access to the staff, and I can't even tell you how much I've pushed it since I've been at the club, mainly because I want a pint when I finish. But do you know, like, my friends, my family, you know, my dad, his mates, they want to come, but they want it to be what they're used to. Like, you know, whether they go and watch Radcliffe Borough, they watch Rochdale, they go Man City, Man United. They get beer. They get a beer and a pie or a burger or chips or whatever, don't they? Like, why is that not happening? And like I say, we're in a position now where it is happening, and that is just, it's, for me personally, it's a massive one. And like we've spoke about, mate, it gets you through the door, doesn't it? Alongside the football. Yeah. But I want a number of these elements that are getting people to the ground and getting support for the team. That's the be all and end all of it.
Yeah, I agree. If anybody wants to send questions in, and obviously we'll sort of reel them out as and when they come in. But I think whilst we wait for questions, I think the thing for me is, like you say, you know, if you're used to that sort of get a beer and that social aspect, it's great. And, you know, I was chatting to people that I'd not necessarily met before. I might have sort of interacted on Twitter, and like, you know, like I say, obviously a couple of hours after the game had finished, and you get to, you know, chat to people. And like you say, it's just good because, you know, it's there and it's what people are used to. And obviously that's how, like say, stuff grows, word of mouth, for example. You know, you go home, you say, oh yeah, well, it was great, rather than just disappear after a game and think, right, see you next week or see you in 2-3 weeks, you can actually, like say, sit down and sort of have conversations, socialize with people. So I think that itself is a big thing. And I know, some people watching might think differently, but for me personally, I know obviously you've mentioned it as well. It is a good thing, and it is a thing that, like you say, enhances sort of linking back to that match day experience as well.
Yeah, and for me, match day experience is really important. That's why you go, isn't it? You want to interact with the players after, and like you say, isn't it? At that late, a lot of it is sort of though having a beer, seeing your friends, talking after. And I do think, like you talked about, that Harriet, she's and obviously I don't know the direct things, but it is reaching out to your community. That's what I feel like in women's football. It is more of a community than, say, maybe big Premier League stadiums. It's still community, but you feel more connected at the women's game, definitely.
100%. And I don't know how much you guys have been to the men's games. Obviously, this season, I might get slaughtered for this, but this season was the first time I'd been to the men's games, and even the atmosphere down there, like you just feel like you're with family all the time. It's mad. Like there's people you've never even met, and it's like, I'm sure I've spoke to you before in a different life. But no, it's a massive move forward, and the biggest thing for me that motivates me at FC at the moment is, you can sit down with people all day long and talk about what you want to do and how it would look, but it's getting done. Do you know what I mean? It's there, it's visible. If you had a player on in a few weeks, you ask them, they'll tell you it's happening. It's not a plan. It's not, let's think about this. It's there. It's happening weekly, daily. It's brilliant.
Yeah. I will admit, I've only done 2 games. I did the Bolton pre-season game for the men, and obviously the Clapton one, just because I love the atmosphere.
Clapton was so good.
Some of his quality. I was like, having a bit of this.
But that's what I'm talking about women's football. Even the men, it was just them. They were amazing. Even though I was cheering for you, but even when we were watching the men's game, and I went to stand with them, and it's just, and I was watching the FA Cup game. They've obviously got through, and they've got knocked out on Sunday. I was devastated, but I was watching their penalty shootout, the last one, just because, and that's through meeting them at FC United, and that's I'm always following their journey now.
Their journey in the FA Cup this year has been magical, and that's what it's about as well. Like,
but I love it how they come and came with the flags, and that's what we need in women's football, isn't it?
Oh, unbelievable! What a day that was. We're trying to sort out another double header at some point in the season, but if this weather carries on, groundsman ain't going to let me offer anything out. But we'll see what happens, because that day, especially for the women's, was quality. I've not seen that before, or been a part of it. Sorry, I have seen it before. I've not been a part of it. It was brilliant.
Should we go into questions? I don't know if you can see that on there. It says questions.
You might be better off just reading some out, man.
Says, do you think if the WSL was bought by the Premier League, we can fast track teams for more investment and more teams through the league due to TV rights?
I don't know. It's a very good question. Obviously, the Premier League themselves are a standalone entity, aren't they, really? So it's probably like anything. If you want to purchase it and you've got the money to, you can go and do it. But I'm not. I don't really know. Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. I've never really thought about it, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I'll just go on. I was just going to add a question here. It's from Paul Tomlin. Don't know if you can see it, but it's not that bad. I think he's talking generally, but he might be talking about Man United, or he might be talking about anywhere. Is there a youngster we all know who's not getting enough game time she deserves? What do you think, Tom?
Are we talking about someone in particular?
I don't know. I think he's just asking the question. Or is there any that you know of, or any that you'd like to see more of?
I think there'll be players at every single club, without a doubt. I'm very much of the mindset, and it's so cliche, that if someone's ready, get them in, because you're never going to know how good or how ready they are until they get that experience. I mean, look at Rashford and how he got his opportunity. I mean, he was probably, well, no one had even really heard of him, had they? Unless you knew about the academy and you knew about the youth teams, and you potentially followed it on MUTV. You wouldn't have even known Rashford were about. He burst on the scene and scored, 3 goals in 4 games, was it? He scored against Liverpool, didn't he, on debut or something? And it changed his whole career. And he's never looked back, and he's never needed to. He's always rose to it. But yeah, I mean, I'm of the mindset, if a youngster's ready and there's opportunity, without a doubt, go and give it. And we had 2 16-year-olds start the game on Sunday. One of them played 90 minutes and scored one of the goals. She's ready. She's brilliant. So we push her on.
Very good player. We've had conversations about that. I remember in pre-season when you said to watch out for her.
Yeah, I know. Well, the other player, Sophie, so this is a good example. So, Sophie, obviously, first year out of youth football, nowhere near ready physically. She's been getting a game time at Wythenshawe Amateurs, training with us twice a week, and she's made 3 competitive appearances now, scored in a few friendlies behind closed doors. Development's unreal. And she got an opportunity to start on Sunday. And that's where we're at. So, yeah, hopefully that probably gives you a better idea about where I stand with youngsters. I had 2 16-year-olds starting in a league game.
Yeah. Nat, do you want to finish with your final question and then we'll wrap it?
The one that we talked about at the start, Tom.
Yeah.
Just about where's Stuart's put a question in? Don't know if we want to go for that one as well.
Do yours, Nat, and then we'll come to Stuart.
Okay, because Stuart's probably a bit easier than mine. Just a couple of players that I'm hearing of, and I know that you said you know of one of them, and just want to hear your opinion on her. Amelia, she's playing in the under 16s, and she's one of the top goal scorers. I know anyone who watches my page, I retweet a couple of the goal scorers that score in the 16s. They're winning a lot, the 16s. Man United now, this is. So just, I know you said you know of her, just your opinions on her.
So I reckon when I left the RTC to go to the 21s at United, Amelia would have been under 11s, under 12s. And at the time, and I can only imagine she's similar now, was a real physical prowess on the pitch. Back then, and I presume it still happens, 11s, 12s, they'll play players in different positions, so develops their game understanding to get challenges that they wouldn't necessarily get in certain positions. But Amelia was always down that spine of the team. She'd be in at centre back, centre midfield, centre forward, real powerhouse. Didn't confuse the game, kept it simple, moved it quick, was effective in and out of possession. And like I say, even when she were playing at the back and getting that experience, she was still a goal threat even then. Like I say, I can't give the most up to date insight on her, but if she's developed like she was doing, she'll have a bright future.
That's good. That's good. Good to hear.
Stuart's asking, do we think Mark Skinner should put Maria Edwards and Kana Solskjaer on the bench, or they may be better with a loan? And it's something, obviously, I think that's come from about because Kana's doing well for the Devs. Obviously, Maria had a very good loan spell at Blackburn and was sort of player of the season. But, we talk a little bit about development. I mean, it might be difficult, obviously, for you to sort of mention, because it's, like I say, different sort of squad and that. But, do you think that maybe, I know we talked about the gap before, do you think maybe that having had a loan in one player's case, it might be beneficial to maybe have another one if they're not sort of involved in that first team environment? We can maybe go at it that way.
Yeah, it's a fine balance, isn't it? Obviously, with loans and stuff, it ties into the transfer windows, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure on, to answer it as detailed as I can, what the contractual stuff on a recall would be.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we're to speak about Mark specifically, he's still quite new to the club. And And it might be caution. He might not have had time to look at it. I'm not 100%. And it depends, like you say. I mean, do we feel that we've got enough strikers? Do we feel they need a chance? Like, there's that balance as well. Yeah, we can look at the individuals, but you know, as you've said, Nat, and as everyone that's probably watching this podcast knows and wants, Man United will want to aspire to Champions League football. So it is a fine balance, but I especially with them two, because the registered, obviously, under 21s players, the dual registration and loaning could work in their favour. Obviously, we've seen the positives of it with Maria in the past, but we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maria could be close. We don't know. Maria could have been injured. It's a bit of everything, isn't it?
I do know she has had an injury. She's come back though, and she's scoring like wildfire, which she does do in that league. But then I've also, you know Rich, don't you? Rich Laverty. He's talked about his different scoring a save 5 in the devs and then being in the first team, and I
mean, you guys asked me about the pressures of it. The pressures of that for the players is significant. Like, what's your average home attendance at LSV now? It's nearly 1,000, isn't it?
2K, yeah.
Yeah, so she's going from 20 parents to
2K.
You know what I mean? So
I mean, what I will say about Mark though, he has called up a lot. I mean, Carrie's playing. I mean, we were unlucky that Carrie didn't play, and she's got a contract now, professional. And he's called up Niamh Murphy. I don't know if you know Niamh.
I know Niamh very well.
You know, she played in the you know. Yeah. But she, from when I was watching Tom, when that first season, she's come on leaps and bounds, and even Kana has come on leaps and bounds just in their physical development. For me, so I think that the option is open for them. It is, but it's like what you say. It depends. He's been talking a lot about strikers, but it's whether you want to put an 18, 19-year-old in there, or do you need, probably now United need that experience who's just gonna bang them in for like a Sam Kerr. They need that kind of
It's timing, isn't it? A lot of it's timing, and that's where the difficulty in decisions come, because when you're trying to plan a timing, you could look at it so many different ways. Now, obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of how everything looks, but he'll know what he's doing. He'll have an idea of what he thinks is right for this moment in time, and it might be in the back of his mind that he's looking a few months down the line, and it could be a different conversation. We don't know.
Yeah. For me, it's the FA Cup game for them, but that's by the by.
We'll take this final question, Tom. It says, and it's kind of similar to what we talked about before. As a manager, you have your own philosophy. Should a manager adapt this in games depending on the players, or should players adapt to the manager's ideas?
Ooh. I'm going to be biased because I'm the manager and there's no players around.
Put it out there.
So I want to answer that in two parts. And like I say, we did touch upon my biggest learnings. Probably I've had to change my philosophy because of what we've come up against. The biggest thing with answering this question that I love about this question is, you can prepare all week for anything, whatever the situation is, whatever the opposition is, whatever the scenarios are, and it could all go out the window within 2 minutes. Or it could be going absolutely to plan. If we use Brighouse, for example, we were in the game till the 40th minute, 0-0. We were waiting to get to half time to then change it up and take the game to them, not be as reserved and defensive. It was a FA Cup game. They scored on the 40th minute, and our discussions at half time were, right, do we go straight at them, or do we batten the hatches down for a few, another 5-10 minutes, bring some fresh legs on, then change the system and take the game to them? we did the latter. We held on for another 10, 15 minutes, which give us, 30, 35 minutes at going at Brighouse, only 1 goal down, with the intention to, at minimum equalise. And it was working. Eve got injured. We waited another 90 minutes, and then how we didn't win in the last 50. Well, I do know how we didn't win, because we didn't put the ball in the back of the net. But we had 3 golden opportunities that could have took us 1 into extra time and 2 through to the next round. So I hope that answers that question a bit. For me, it's hard because everyone has different opinions, but I think the manager potentially should adapt first, but only to a certain extent. You can't go too far away from, too far sort of seems too close. There's got to be a boundary on how far you're going to change before.
That's it.
You bring in players that fit what you want to achieve. But goes back to the tools you've got. You've got to bend yourself a bit to make certain things work.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come to the end of the show, so I want to thank you, Tom, for joining us again. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you as well to everybody that's tuned in for your comments, and obviously to Natalie as well for joining us. Keep an eye out tomorrow. We are at Everton, so a little bit of match day content will be going on. And then Thursday, obviously, Natalie, and you're back with John as well, aren't you?
Transfer show, yeah.
Yeah, transfer special. We love it. That's all then. So thanks very much for tuning in, and we will see you soon.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.